I couldn't get the whole cruise on the map too well, but we started up here in Seattle, went down the coast to Los Angeles, went over to the Hawaiian Islands for a while, and then we dropped down to a bunch of southern, Southwest Pacific islands, Fiji, Vanuatu, New Caledonia. So we'll be stopping in all these places and having a look at some of the things that we saw there. Okay, so why a cruise? Why would you go on a cruise? Basically, you can visit some very remote places you can't really get to otherwise. Some of these places are, I mean, how many people know how to get to Vanuatu? Somebody does. You were a travel agent, that doesn't count. Quite affordable. You don't have to move every day. Some of the trips we go on, like when we went to Australia, we were on our own, driving all over the country, and moving all the time. That gets a little bit old, living out of a suitcase. With a cruise, you move in once. They feed you 3 times a day, and then you can get off the ship when you want to. There's no language barriers, I emphasize, on the ship. Many of the places you go will have language barriers because many of these places, like on this cruise, once you get past Hawaii, those islands are owned by the French and various other countries. The costs are all prepaid. Yeah, it costs money up front, but then you don't have to worry about forking out more money as you go. It is secure, it is safe. The terrorists have not blown up a cruise ship yet. There are shore excursions. There's lots of shore excursions available on these ships. They do cost extra. They're not included in the cost, and they're getting pretty expensive. The cost of shore excursions has probably doubled in the last 10 or 15 years. It used to be probably on average $50 per person per day for a pretty nice shore excursion. Now it's $100 a day per person. Of course, you don't have to go on shore excursions. You can go on your own, or you could even stay on the ship. First place we landed was in Hawaii. This map is a little misleading, but the various cruises land in different places. They'll often land here at eastern side of main Hawaiian Island, Lahaina up in Maui, Honolulu, and they go over to Kauai as well. So you can go ahead and go to any of these islands depending on which cruise you select.
Yeah.
Big boat, a lot of people. Most of these cruise lines these days have about 2,000 passengers. And in addition to that, there'll be another 1,500 people who work on the ship. So there's just a whole bunch of people there. You notice that this ship is not at a dock. In many cases, the ships do what's called timbering. Anybody know what timbering is?
It's when the little boat goes from the ship to the shore.
Little boats take you to shore. Now those are the lifeboats. And when there's no big dock for the ship to land, and they want to stop at that place as a port, you see all these lifeboats lined up here. They drop those guys down and they load them up with people and they take you to shore. I don't know how many people fit in one of those lifeboats. I think it's on the order of 80 to 100 people, a lot of people. And they ship you off to a little dock on the shore. Some of the best places to go if you're interested in natural history are tendered ports. That's because you're not getting dropped off in the middle of the city at some port facility dock that's a mile and a half from the city, and then it's another mile and a half before you can get anywhere. With tendered ships, you usually just kind of go right to where you want to go. Or that is with tendered ports. So Hawaii is visited a lot. Many people go there. There's still some nice things to see. A huge percentage of things you see in Hawaii are imported. They're not native. Bird of paradise is not native. This is a native. This is one of the birds that Hawaii is quite proud of, the Hawaiian goose. It's endemic there. Can't see it anywhere else in the world. They're fairly tame because they're protected. You can often see them.
Can't eat them, huh?
Hmm? Oh, you can eat them. Yeah, why not? pretty much throughout the Hawaiian Islands. Of course, they are also non-native, they're imported, and they seem to do quite well there. So, some of the islands, like Maui, has a lot of monarchs. The main island does too. Many of the, yes,
Oh, I was wondering, are the butterflies toxic to birds there?
yeah, some of them are. The monarchs, I'm not sure what the monarchs feed on there. It's what they feed on that makes them toxic.
It would have to be something in the milkweed family.
I think
Yeah,
so.
I think on Hawaii it's mainly Calotropis. So it's this big, round leaf, milkweed-like shrub.
Is it, do you know if it's toxic?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they're toxic.
Is that a jacaranda it's on? Jacaranda?
I don't think so. This is a small plant.
That's a bohinia.
It's a what?
Bohinia.
Oh, it's a bohinia,
Monarch
okay.
orchid tree.
I'm glad we haven't bought this in the crowd here. That helps. We'll challenge you later. Black-necked stilt, we actually have those here. Some of the shorebirds and seabirds, of course, they move around a lot throughout the Pacific, so some of those birds are the same as we'll find here in Washington or in the United States, and they are native there. But there's some very beautiful places, some real nice natural areas where you can go on hikes. In this particular case, we're on a hike up the Mauna Kea on the Big Island. Very lush up there. And there's lots of, when you get up to a decent level of elevation, I think around 3,000 feet, you get up to where the native birds are still surviving pretty well. At lower levels, as the biologist described it to us, the problem is that there's a bird disease that's carried by mosquitoes. And they pretty well done the native birds in at lower elevations, but the mosquitoes don't do well up at high elevation. And so yes.
Dave, when you go on a hike like that, do you use a guide or do you just strike off on your own?
In this particular place, this is up on the east side of Mauna Kea, you can't go in without a guide. It's closed to access unless you have a permission or a guide. There is one company on the Big Island called Hawaii Forest and Trail. They're very good. And it's not real cheap. It's like $100 to $110 per person per day. Very worth it. I mean, they take you into wonderful places and take you on hikes, see lots of birds and whatever else is around. So I highly recommend them. Lovely area up there. Here's one of the many imported species of butterflies on Hawaii. I'm not sure where this is native. Do you know, John?
Oh, definitely not.
Okay, it's not native. I mean, we don't know where it's native.
Hawaii has two native butterflies, Kamehameha and Vega, the little blue.
Okay, yeah. I don't have any pictures of the Kamehameha. It's a beautiful butterfly. It's closely related to the painted lady, except brighter colors, and it's larger. It's a real beauty, but I've seen it only once. You can see it there. I don't have any photos of it. There are lots of birds around, some very colorful ones. These happen to be native to Africa, little common waxbills. You see them on lawns, and you can see these anywhere, in any of the cities, anywhere. And of course, hibiscus and many other tropical flowers. These are all imported as well.
Dave, when did you go on this trip?
The main trip we're talking about was a year and a half ago, Joe? Where'd Joe go? She's talking on the phone.
It said either 2013 or 2014 on the bottom.
2014?
It said 2013
Okay.
at the beginning.
3 years ago.
Okay.
A little over 3 years ago.
Okay.
And there's lots of birds around. These are just common city birds, spotted dove, another imported species. So much there is imported. The Gulf Frittle area, of course, we have it here in the States. It's not native to Hawaii, but it's there.
It's now in Thailand of all places.
The Gulf Frit?
Yeah, it somehow got to Thailand, it's established in Thailand now.
But it's not native there either, right?
No,
Yeah, I've seen it in your slide.
There's some real interesting stories about what's native and what's not and how they got there. I've got a real neat one I'll be talking about later, type of bird. Green sea turtles are actually pretty common in Hawaii. You see them on a number of beaches. They're quite tame. You're not allowed to get up real close to them. Certainly not allowed to touch them, but people do all the time.
How big are these?
The carapaces will be about, I don't know, pushing 3 feet long. They're big turtles. And if you go out snorkeling, sometimes you come right up nose to nose with these underwater. They're fun. But there's a lot of nice hikes you can take. This is another Hawaii Forest and Trail hike. This is to Mauna Loa. This is kind of the base of the South volcano. And you go out, it's more of a scrubby area, but there's some neat things in there. This is the trail that I saw the Kamehameha butterfly on, but didn't get pics. Java sparrow is quite an attractive bird. It's also a pest. They don't like it there because it's expanding and displacing other birds. And as the name would suggest, it's from Indonesia. Very pretty bird, though. And the fiery skipper. This is pretty common all over much of the southern United States. And it's very common in Hawaii. You see it all over. Very neat bird that you don't see very often. This is what you'll see on the island of Kauai if you look long enough. And this was a Southeast Asian bird. Nothing's native there. Many of the plants are also imported, but and of course, this is one of the guys that they wish had not been imported. Mongooses have been very hard on many of the smaller animals and birds. They eat the eggs and so on. But the Asian mongoose is quite common on several of the islands.
That's not a goose.
It's a goosemon.
What's the pearl?
Got it.
What's the pearl of this thing?
I'm sorry?
The pearl? If you got more than one, what do you call it? Mongoose?
I don't know.
That's a trick question.
Mongooses.
You stop me. If you're lucky, when you go up into higher elevations, you might see one of the native birds. And this is an iiwi. Most of the native birds have Hawaiian names, and they don't have. So you hear all these apapani and iiwi and all these things, hard to remember. But this is a very pretty bird with a long, down-curved orange bill, and it takes nectar from these beautiful ohia flowers. This is a tree. A beautiful flowering tree, and you see the ohia flowers, you start looking for these red birds. And again, these are native birds, so they're mostly found higher elevation. Here's another species of butterfly. Again, it's not native. This is a strymon. Anybody know a strymon that we have?
Don't ask me, I mean, I'm
The
not.
gray hair streak.
Sorry?
The gray hair streak.
Gray hair streak, good for you.
The better question is, do you know which one that is?
That's a lantana scrub hair streak.
Yeah, what's the scientific name?
Strymon bazokii.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you got it. I didn't see that. I'm just gonna.
That was out of memory. But many of the shore excursions that are available on cruise ships they're short. Bear in mind that when you're on a cruise ship, you're usually in a port typically from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, something like that. So you don't have a long time to work in a trip. Once in a while, you'll be in a port overnight. But there are some pretty nice shore excursions you can go on. This one happens to be on Oahu, and this place called the Holly Pass Battlefield. This is where King Kamehameha brought his army and defeated the local army of Oahu. Basically, they forced them in the direction we're looking. There's a cliff over there. They just pushed them all over the cliff. And by defeating them, Kamehameha united all of the Hawaiian Islands. The other islands basically gave up when that happened. And that was what united Hawaii into a single country. But the thing about this area, you can see there's green grass, there's a lot of trees, there's flowers all over. So you can go on some of these trips, which, they're mostly looking at the battlefield and the monuments and all that. And you can break away from the group and you find butterflies, you find birds, all kinds of good stuff around the edges. So that's one way you can see some good stuff is go on the excursion sponsored by the ship, but you don't need to stick right with the group. You kind of move around and do your own thing. Another pretty little bird. This one's from Argentina. Everything's important. Okay, after we left Hawaii, then we moved far to the southwest, and we went through the series of islands. We went to Samoa, then Fiji, and then Vanuatu, and finally New Caledonia. And we made multiple stops in a couple of these. But on the way, as we started hitting on that, we're always watching for pelagic birds that basically live at sea. And so you see shearwaters, you see albatrosses. This is the flesh-footed shearwater that we saw on the way down to those islands. And this shearwaters can look puzzlingly similar. This is a different kind of shearwater. You can see them right off the deck of the ship. And you get some beautiful sunsets out there, of course. Finally, we arrive at our first island. This is Samoa, and we stopped at the small city of Upolu. Of Apia in the island of Upolu. And this particular place was culturally interesting, but it wasn't worth much for natural history. Part of the reason is that this was something to watch for on a cruise ship itinerary. The ship docked at a port facility, a big industrial port, and it was like a half-mile hike just to get into the city, and then you're in the city. And if you want to go to someplace outside of the city, you have to drum up your own trip, or you have to get a taxi or something. So basically, in a place like this, your best bet is probably to tag along on one of the ship-sponsored shore excursions, and it may or may not be worth your while. In this case, we went on one that was actually a pretty good little tour. They took us out into some nice country here, beautiful forests. And we went over, and you see some wildlife here and there, skink. But this is the place we were bound for. This was the home where Robert Louis Stevenson lived when he was in the islands and wrote a lot of his publications. And there were some nice trails out here through the forest, and a big expanses off to the left of lawn. And those lawn areas attracted these really neat birds. These are a type of rail. Rails are very difficult to see most of the time. Mostly they're very secretive. They live in wet grasses, and you hear them talking, but you hardly ever see them. But these, at this particular place, these banded rails were coming right out of the lawns, so you give you lots of good looks. Pacific golden plover, that happens to be a bird that we have here in Washington, but it's kind of a specialty of those islands. So we didn't stay too long there. We headed on down to Fiji, and we went to the city, or the town of Suva, on the island of Viti-Levu. I'm probably butchering the names of these, but after there, then we drop on down to this little island of Drabuni Island. This Drabuni Island is a tender stop, and Suva is it's a port facility. And again, with a port facility, your options are limited. You're stuck out on the port, well away from the city, and it's a fairly long walk right through industrial port areas and to get to the city. When you get there, you don't speak the language. How do you get a taxi? How do there are people there selling excursions, but you're not sure what you're getting. So again, it might be a good bet to go with one of the shore excursions. There's reasons to choose one way or the other. If you take a ship excursion, they're going to be more expensive than if you go out and barter for your own on the dock. Probably twice as expensive. And the reason they're twice as expensive is because the ship takes half of the money. They make the arrangements, they hand out tickets, they take your money, and then they give half of it to the people who actually run the trip. That makes the trip operators very unhappy. They don't like giving up that kind of money, but basically if they don't cooperate with the crews, they don't get the customers. So it's kind of a hate-hate situation, but they sort of make it work. But if you want to, you can go on shore and you can find the same excursions or virtually the same for a lower price by just bartering on the dock. There's lots of people that are trying to sell you trips. One thing to remember is that all of the ship-sponsored excursions are guaranteed by the ship to the extent that if they don't get back before the ship sails, the ship will wait for them. If you're on your own, they won't wait for you. And so you might find yourself out at VT level, wondering how the heck I get out of here. Anyway, this particular thing, this was kind of a touristy thing with the native dance for you. But the basis for this dance, this is essentially a cannibalistic ritual. And in Fiji, everybody was cannibals. The early European mariners simply didn't land in Fiji or some of these other islands because everybody who landed got eaten. And or they were attempted to be eaten. The people lived in small tribes adjacent to each other. They kind of divided the island up. And every once in a while, one group would decide they didn't like the other group. And so they had a ritualistic battle where they each would have the chiefs go out and battle with each other. And the chief that lost, his whole tribe lost. First of all, they killed the chief and they would eat him. And then they would take the entire rest of his tribe captive. The chief of the winning team would go in and pick the prettiest girls, and they became his concubines. And the rest of them would be killed and eaten. They would keep them alive long enough that they'd stay fresh. The children would be hung up by their ankles in a tree, and they'd be used for spear practice by the other children of the winning team. So it was a vicious, brutal kind of life, but they're very proud of it. You know, they don't try to hide it. They laugh about it. They have a museum on the island of reminiscences of their cannibalistic days. One of their prized possessions is the sole of a shoe. And they say that this is from a missionary. They know the name of the missionary. They say this is the only part that wasn't edible. Sole of the shoe. So it's kind of a creepy culture there. They still are proud of it. Cannibalism ended a long time ago, clear back in the 1960s. But you still kind of wonder.
You're wondering.
Oops. So that's all we didn't spend much time there. We went on to this next time. This is Dravuni Island, and as you can see, it's a tender. Excuse me, dry throat. It's a tendered fort, which is my favorite. So we came in on the tenders, and they have these little docks. There are people, of course, living on these islands, and some of these islands actually have roads and cars. They just don't have a big enough dock to take on a big ship. But this little island was one of my favorites because it had some beautiful beaches. As you can see, there's this neat little mountain over there. There's a trail. When you get to the shore, there's a trail you can walk. It goes clear up here on top of that mountain, and a lot of the people from the ship go up there. This is what the trail looks like. A lovely place. Flowers all over, there's butterflies.
There were butterflies there?
You betcha.
You got it. Holy cow, there's butterflies there.
Yeah. Now this is a very common butterfly. This is the Hypolemnus melina, the common egg fly. This is basically found all over the Pacific and all over Southeast Asia, South Asia, Madagascar, and New Zealand and Australia. It's very widespread. And there's a very similar species, I believe, that's found on the New World, right?
Yeah.
Hypolemnus
Misopus.
misopus, yeah. Pretty similar, but it's And we're not sure how it got here because it's supposed to be in Africa. But this is a widespread butterfly that you see quite often there in the tropical islands. I have some more pictures of it later. Of course, banana trees and coconut trees are pretty endemic, not native, but endemic. There's not much fresh water on the island. So when I encountered this lake, this 20-foot wide pond, I found a lot of life around it. It was a neat little spot. Because when there's fresh water, things sort of gather around it. And so there's some nice dragonflies. This was I'm not sure, this might be an ortheptrum, I'm not sure what the species is. And here's a really neat dolphin. And they're flying around this tiny little pond. That's all the water they have. Again, continuing on up the trail, this is heading up to that peak I was talking about. I don't really remember, somebody took my camera, and that fat guy there's me, but somebody else took this. We have some coconuts here, I think.
Was it really windy? Was it really windy? That tree looks like it's blowing, or is it just that shape?
Coconut trees have some real, they're like sails. They have so much surface area, it doesn't take too much wind to make them really look like they're blowing. It was a little windy, but when you get at the top, you get views like this. You can see all over. See down here? That's the tender. That's the little rock that it came from. Looking back the other direction, real neat up there. And as you look around, there's these beautiful shoals all along. This would be the west side of this particular island. So if you want to go snorkeling, there's just lots of places for some fine snorkeling. All kinds of tropical fish in these areas. Probably some nice tropical sharks too. Just a few scenery shots here. There were butterflies here, but I remember now it was breezy up there because when you see a butterfly, it wouldn't hang around too long to get blown away. You get out and look over and see your mothership hiding over there on the bay. Looks like there's another tender coming ashore. Lookout Trail, that hilltop that I had, that is called Lookout Mountain. So this is the Lookout Trail right to it. Lots of coconut palms. You have to be careful around coconut palms. The locals always tell you don't stand under a coconut palm. If you have to go under it, you walk through quickly. If those coconuts fall, they can kill you. They come down with a real thud. Some more shoals. That just looks, you just want to go get your snorkel gear and go out there. I know what that would be like out there. It'd be wonderful. All those coral heads and all those tropical fish would be wonderful. We didn't do any snorkeling on this particular trip. This is a type of frangipani or plumeria. Lots of these plants grow all through the Pacific Islands. I don't think they're native on most of these places, but they've been, many of these tropical flowers have been introduced all over the Pacific. Another trail scene. Got these little palm trees. That might be a baby coconut, I don't know. Just starting up. But it's not quite as isolated as it looks. There are people walking up and down the trails. I was waiting for a time when nobody was in sight to take pictures. And beaches, lots of beaches. Not too many people on them. See all the tenders going back and forth. Time to go back to the ship before it leaves. So this is people waiting in line to get out to the tenders, and then they'll get on out. Sometimes the crossing within the tender can be pretty rough. When you go in these tender boats, these lifeboats, you see they're completely covered. And when you get inside, they might have a little zipper window that they might open. A lot of times they leave those closed because you get too much water splashing in. So with 80 or 100 people inside there, it can get pretty hot and stuffy.
Do the tenders have a schedule, so you got to be there at 3 o'clock if you want to catch one?
It's basically they come and go as fast as they can, and they just keep coming and going all day. But yes, there's a time when the last tender leaves, and if you're not on it, you stay right there on that island. And by the way, on these tendered islands, there is no guaranteed field trip. There's nothing the ship's going to wait for. If you don't make it back on your own, you don't make it back. Our next stop was the tiny little country of Vanuatu, and this is we're stopping at a town of Port Vila, and the island is called Ifati. This one, as you can see, is a port facility, so we have the ship docked right next to the town. It's a small town though, so it's pretty easy to walk ashore at this one. You can kind of get a feeling for what you'd be looking for in a cruise. If you're going to one of the larger cities, you're almost always going to be out in an industrial port facility out half a mile to a mile walk just to get to town. If you're taking one of the shore excursions, one of the ship's shore excursions, the buses come right to the ship and just get on and leave. But if you want to go off on your own, you might have to walk quite a ways just to get away from the ship. This particular case, we decided to take a ship excursion, and it took us off to this touristy native village. They kind of wanted to herd you around here, and I wanted to keep branching off and look at stuff, and they kept getting mad at me. But you can kind of do that, just kind of get out and sort of see your own thing anyway. Here's this big butterfly. I don't know to this day what it is. I don't have any idea what it is.
I think it's another hypolimnus, just not Helena.
Really? Huh. It seemed large for hypolimnus, but maybe. This is a big guy.
That's not the female.
But it could be. There's always natives there with some gimmick to get your coins. And this one had an iguana that you like to put on your arm. But again, we didn't stay there too long. So now we're headed on to New Caledonia. And this was probably our best area for natural history of this trip. And you can see we made several stops here. Once on the island of Lifo, once on Grand Isle. Grand Isle is the biggest island in New Caledonia. And over to the little Isle of Pines here. Again, this is a tendered stop at the first stop on Lifo. Up here you can see that there's a lighthouse, and that's a favorite walk for people getting off the ship. There are trails up here on the shoreline, and you go along the beach and then on up there for a real nice view. Joe, do you remember if there's any cars on this island? I think there might be a few because they had rudimentary roads here and there, but mostly this is a place to hike. Up here, oops, I didn't mean to do that. And here's what the dock looks like. There are people living on the island. I don't. One here was actually this one. And so you have, like I say, it's a fairly source, and I think they do have a few cars here, but there's not many, and you just don't see them driving around. I haven't seen any gas stations. But again, beautiful water here if you wanted to go snorkeling, and a lot of people do. There are a lot of relatives of monarchs in this area.
Tiramala.
Say again?
I thought it was Tiramala. They may have changed the name, I don't know.
Instead of Offendus?
Yeah, I don't know.
Could be, I don't know. Now the resources for identifying butterflies and birds on these islands are really poor. One thing that we've found in the places that we've traveled is if the country was part of the British Empire, there's going to be all kinds of natural history books. If it was French, there's probably not going to be much, and if it was Spanish, there won't be anything. It's just the way the different cultures were for these empire-building countries that had all these holdings all over the world. This is a French island. And there's not much there in the way of natural history resources. Yes,
Do you know what the larval food plant for this would be?
I don't know. It's Danaeids use milkweeds, but I don't know if they all do. And then there's these butterflies called crows. Anybody have any idea what family these might belong to? Just a little hint. You see the thorax with all the spots on it? That remind you of anything? Hmm?
Great purple hair streak, who's that?
Well, this is another monarch relative. These crows. These are black Danaeids. And they're fairly common. There's a number of different species of them.
Are these the ones with the gold chrysalises?
Yeah, they do. You blow it, yeah, they all have gold.
Chrysalis, they're beautiful.
Okay. I didn't know that. Thank you. And you see some beautiful whites there too. The caper white is fairly common, and it's pretty variable. The males and females are different. They're pretty colorful.
Would these butterflies be brought in from other countries, or are these natives?
I don't think so. You don't see too many things on these far southwest Pacific islands that are imported. Some of the flowers certainly, but I think most things there are native. It's not like Hawaii, where everything is imported.
Do you know the plant that it's on?
It almost looks like a porterweed, but I don't.
It's a stacky tarpon at Portland.
Yeah.
There's
There's
a thing down in Brazil and other areas in South America called, there's a porterweed and there's another name, and they're very attractive to butterflies. From the Caribbean. It almost looks like a porterweed, but I don't know what it is. Oh, okay.
Stacky turkey, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful beaches.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's related to the porterweed.
So that was part of the German census for that species.
There's a rag, but it's again common A-fly.
And your fish.
From the Caribbean.
Species all of them down here, they're all from South America.
I guess these white spots look like they.
Stacky turkey.
Stacky tarpon.
That's the only thing I've been able to think. You know if this would be
I
related
have
to
a
the
much
porterweed?
better theory.
Yes, sir.
They have no idea what to call it, but they're from Australia, and so they picked something that made no sense whatsoever. They made us live with it. All the egg flies are in Australia.
Next, the forests are really lush in this area. You can see this once you get off the little trails and roads, it's real tangly. There's not much in the way of dangerous animals or snakes in this area. There are sea snakes. You have to watch for those along the shorelines. But generally these areas are pretty safe otherwise. So there's some nice big spiders. I have no idea what kind of spider this is, but it's big. This is what the main trail looks like, the main road trail along the beach. And as you walk along, you get these little windows out, and you can see the ship out there. Here's another crow. This is a different species. Again, notice the spotted thorax, just like a monarch. And the rows of spots around the trailing edge of the wings are very much like a monarch or a queen. Purple crow.
Yeah, the dorsal sides have a purple iridescence.
They may have, I don't know. I don't think I saw them. Would this be the same kind of plant again?
Yeah, same species complex.
Okay, good. And you see some neat birds. The Melanesian flycatcher, this little bird is endemic to this area. It's not found anywhere else in the world. So it's a curious little bird that pops up once in a while. Yeah, and then the rocky fish. And once you get up on the top, I'm up by the lighthouse now, and you have quite a spectacular view. This one, unfortunately, had a lady in it that was glued there. Didn't want to move. But we're looking off to the northwest here. This particular view, the ship would be off over behind this wall here. And Frangipani, of course, this has been introduced all over the Pacific. and all over tropics all over the world. This is one of the flowers they used to make glades in Hawaii. What's the other name for frangipani?
Plumeria.
Sorry?
Plumeria?
Plumeria.
I
Plumeria.
learned that from you.
And again, looking back at the ship. Heading on back. Again, going back the same way. And all along this area, you'll see, even on the grassy areas, you'll see butterflies. And of course, there's some neat tropical birds up in the trees there. I have not been able to identify this parrot. I struggled with this for quite a while. I just don't know what it is. The leaf it's on almost looks like a milkweed, doesn't it? I doubt if it is though. Fruit doves are amazing. They have these beautiful, kind of subtle pastel colors, and they're just beautiful. There's a number of species of them. I only know of this particular one species on this island, but I know in Australia, Papua New Guinea, there's a number of species of fruit doves, and they're all just beautiful. Time to head back to the ship and the tender. Notice the water. This is a very bumpy ride. So all the windows were closed, and we're stifling hot and sweaty inside, 100 of us. But, it only takes 20 minutes, so it's not a big deal. Now we're going to go to the big island, the Grand Isle of New Caledonia. This is the city of Noumea. Can't see the ship here. I think it's kind of a little bit behind the hill over here. And at this particular place, we wanted to get, there's a large complex of gardens and zoo, kind of like the way Woodland Park Zoo is here in Seattle. But it's a lot of it's natural, so there's a lot of neat things there. So we managed to fumble our way through, not speaking French, we managed to fumble our way through and find out which bus to catch. And they put us on a bus, which we thought kind of maybe went this direction. And it did get us there. This is the Noumea Zoo and Botanic Gardens. It's a large area. It must be, I don't know, I guess it must be a couple of square miles. And it sits up on top of the hill. And there are parts of it are zoo, there's stuff behind screens, but a lot of it's just open country with lots of butterflies and lots of wild birds. It's a beautiful spot. These are chestnut-breasted manakins. You can see that they feed birds in some areas. They have this pan of seeds out, and so these neat little manakins would come in numbers.
So these are mannequins?
Yeah, there's two different spellings for mannequin. There's New World mannequins, which have a different spelling altogether, and they're not related at all. And they're not related to the ones you see in clothing stores either. This is neat leaf mimic. I'll let John or somebody else pronounce this.
Come on, you try it.
Deliscalia.
Yeah, all right.
Tongana. Autumn leaf. Leaf mimic. Really neat looking butterflies. Quite large, as I recall. This just in the position we see it from one end to the other. It was I don't know. It's 2.5 upwards of 3 inches long.
Yeah, they're leaf wings. They're the mimic leaf wing type butterfly.
Mm-hmm. And another crow, a long-branded crow. Again, you can really see the spots on the thorax. Looks very monarch-like except for the black color. And again, these patterns of rows of white spots, much like the queen, I guess. The emerald dove is a pretty widespread bird. It's all over Australia and New Zealand, and we see it in, I think, a little bit in Hawaii, and it's very common in this area. Very pretty birds. When you get the sunlight shining on it, it just glows emerald. Yet another crow. Well, this is the common crow. But you can see there's just a variety of these things. They're all basically black with white spots, and they're all relatives of the monarch. Somebody has been eating this plant. I don't know if it would be the larva of this butterfly or not. And you see a lot of orchids. I'm trying not to show too many pictures of flowers because most of them I don't know what they are.
That's actually a ginger.
I'm sorry?
That's a ginger.
Ginger.
That's a ginger?
That, yeah.
That's a ginger, not an orchid. Sorry.
That's a cultivated one. Alpinia aroma.
Oh, okay. This is misspelled. This should be. And our old friend, Hypolemus molina again. You can see these things are extremely variable. The males and females are different. The dorsals and ventrals are different. This one doesn't look too much like the egg fly we saw before with the big white spots, does it? But it's the same species.
I am the egg fly. They are the egg fly.
But this is what we went to see. This is a captive bird in the zoo. You can see it has, well, I guess you can't see, but it has little anklets. This is a kagoo. And the kagoo is found nowhere else in the world, just on this one island. And it's a real enigmatic bird. It's very threatened. There's only a few of them left in the wild, and they're kind of only sort of out because of the sort of female. At this zoo, they have some interesting captivity. And this is a bird which it's the only bird they think in its entire family, and it's endemic to this one island. There's another picture. Oh, there's a bracelet. So they figure that the closest relative of this bird is a sunbitter. Anybody seen a sunbitter? Yeah, a lot of people have. This is what a sunbitter looks like. This is from a different trip from South America.
What are they bitter about?
The sun. But look at these birds. That's the closest relative of this. What do they have in common? Now this bird is flightless.
So they had a problem with rats and other imported animals?
No, it's not imported. This is native.
No, but I mean, have they had a problem with invasive predators?
I'm not sure what has been its biggest problem, whether it's predators or people hunting them or what. They're fairly big birds, and I think they were killed for food.
How do they use it?
Now this bird is a poor flyer. It can't fly, but it's a poor flyer. They have a few things in common. First of all, their DNA is pretty close, and that's why they think they're related. They have a display that's similar. They have this wing straight out and head bowed down display that they both do. They have another feature called feathered dust. Anybody know what feathered dust is?
Feathered dust?
You ever have a pigeon hit your window?
Oh, yeah.
Like a van-tailed pigeon hits your window, and the pigeon's not hurt, it flies away, but there's a perfect impression of a pigeon on your window. That's because the feather dust, when it hit the window, it just left this feather dust. And feather dust is found on several different groups of birds, unrelated groups, but there's not very many kinds of birds that have it. But the sun bittern and the kagoo both have that feature in common.
Well, now they're both related to the feathered duster, right?
They might be. It depends on who made it.
Yeah, the heron family has the.
Yes.
Are you picking on me?
No, I'm answering the question.
Have a question?
Why did the
Why is it bitter?
I guess this doesn't pertain to the kagoo, but the sunbird is bitter. If somebody really wants to see a sunbird locally, there's one at the Look Zoo.
This year?
It's not always out where you can see it. Though. It's in the aviary or whatever that's called, jungle vines, or something. Not jungle vines, it's in one of the indoor.
Oh, okay, good. So anyway, we have sun bitterns here. They're in Central America and South America, and it's mostly in the lowlands, Amazon basin. And how many thousands of miles away is New Caledonia?
3,322.
Was it 8,000 miles away? And this is a poor flyer. The Kagu doesn't fly at all. How could these things be related? So this is one of these great mysteries.
Go back into Miocene.
Well, that's one thing they're saying. Well, back in the Gondwana time, maybe they had a similar ancestor somewhere. But the thing is, the timing's all wrong. Gondwana split up way before there were advanced birds like these. Plus, these islands in the Southwest Pacific were never part of Gondwana. It's a argument that doesn't make any sense for me. So we have these birds very remote from each other. They're supposed to. These are their.
Feather dust is for.
Sorry.
Do we know what the dust adaptation is?
The feather dust.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I know with some birds like the pigeons,
Related or?
they're very hard for a hawk to catch. When they grab them, they get a bunch of feather dust. That might have something to do. It might be part of an escape mechanism. I don't know.
How big is the Kagu?
It's actually pretty big. They stand. Well, say they were standing on this table. They would stand.
Really?
Oh, really?
I think it's shorter.
You think it's shorter? Not much. And they have a curious noise that they make. Can you tell what it sounds like?
They bark.
They bark like a dog.
Some
Really?
dog right there.
Really interesting birds.
Dave, is there any evidence that the Polynesians moved anything around, particularly so it's good to eat?
I don't think anybody really knows, but again, if they were moving Kagus around, where did they come from? They don't exist anywhere else in the world.
And the other ones, the bitter ones, they're down in Central America, right?
Central and South, yeah. They're all over the Amazon.
So does the zoo have a captive breeding program for those?
For the sunbird, or you mean for the Kagus? They have them in captivity, and there were some young birds there. So I don't know if you call it a captive breeding program or a captive breeding program, but they are having young in captivity. Yes, they had probably 8 or 10 of them at this zoo, and I think there's another 30 or 40 that are loose on the island in the wild, and that's the whole world's population. Anyway, neat birds. Here's another butterfly that was up in that same park. Another leaf mimic.
That was named after Dennis Paulson.
Okay. Rufous whistler. You see lots of these neat little birds. Whistlers are a group of birds that were, found in Australia, New Zealand, and probably Southeast Asia as well. And I don't know what the range of this particular species is. This is a lousy picture. Please forgive my photography, but this is a very large swallowtail, and it was one of these butterflies that lands only for a short time and it keeps fluttering its wings. Very hard to photograph. But what's interesting about this, and again I'll leave it to some French guy to pronounce this, Montroserii. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Montrosiers Ulysses. This is a very rare butterfly. Rufous whistler, you see lots of these neat, the only whistlers are a group of birds that can get this butterfly found in Australia, New Zealand, and probably in the United States as well. We charge about $300 a butterfly. So they're very solid. I don't know what the range of this particular, it's large. I don't have any measurements on it, but I think it must have had a close to a 7-inch wingspan. It's very big. Big, bright, brilliant blue swallowtail. Big old reaper. There's another orchid. A yield. And then when we were finished in the park, we started asking people. We would occasionally find somebody that speak a little English, and we asked them, well, how do we get back to town? They said, oh, just go up to the bus station and wait. and wait. And wait. And we were looking at our watch, well, it's only 2 hours till the ship leaves. And we were wondering if a bus finally came. It had a thing in the window saying where it was going. There's no place we knew. But the driver understood enough English to know what cruise ship was. He said, yes, got us on. Anyway, we did get back. But while we were waiting, this little honey eater decided to want to attack itself in the mirror. So it was just working this, it was sitting on somebody's car and attacking its image, both in the window and of course in the mirror.
Are these the ones, are these the same as the ones in Africa?
No, honey eaters, but that's a honey guide.
Honey God.
Yeah, honey eaters are Australia and southwest Pacific. There's, I think, 80 species of honey eaters in Australia. So they're pretty big down in this part of the country. I think this bird is endemic to this island, however. So it's time to move on to our final island. This is Isle of Pines in New Caledonia. You can see it's another tender stock. Isle of Pines does have some cars on it, but it doesn't have a big enough dock for the ship to come in. It's called Isle of Pines because there's pines all over this island.
Are they really pines?
Yeah, they're a type of pine, yeah. I think they might be Norfolk pines.
Right, they're not pines.
They're not pines?
Norfolk pines are pines,
It's a separate family, or a carrier.
Are they a different family? So, so we went to shore on the tender, and then we took a short excursion. This was only be a couple of hours, and then we'd have time to walk around as well. This little excursion bus would come by and people would pile into it. They took us out to this grotto. I have no idea who Queen Hortense is, but this is her grotto. And it was kind of a neat place. Of course, they've got this walkway that goes in, and it's dark. Kind of a fun place. There were some birds flying around. I think there were swallows that were fly catching. It's right off of the cave. And there's these pierrins that are called albatrosses, Appius, and there's several different kinds of them there. All the ones that I, quote, identified have an AFF, means affinities too. I couldn't get any real solid identifications on any of these things. They're quite pretty.
What does the dorsal side look like?
Sorry?
The dorsal, what does the dorsal look like?
I don't know. Real solid identifications on any of these things. They're quite pretty.
What does the dorsal side look like?
Sorry?
The dorsal, what does the dorsal look like?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
They're much more white or yellow. The dark colors aren't prominent on the dorsal side.
Okay. I think I do remember that, yes. I've forgotten it. And you have these little trails and tracks going all over. Some of these islands have some people that look a little bit like maybe you wouldn't want to meet them in a dark alley. And this is kind of a dark alley. So we were a little careful going down some of these places. But it's a beautiful area. There's lots of vegetation, lots of butterflies, lots of birds. So if you wanted to go in a small group, you'd be fine, I'm sure. Here's another albatross. Appius Paulina, Perils of Paulina. Quite pretty little things. They're not that little, these are pretty good sized pierrins. And the caper white. These things are real variable. Anybody recognize the plant this is on? Lantana. I don't actually know where lantana is native. We have it all over the southeast part of the U.S. You know where it's native?
Best guesses are somewhere in South America, but in tropical Europe.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, it's not native here, I'm sure. But lantana is one of these plants that's been imported all over the world. Here's another variable egg fly. This is a female. The males have those white spots that look like eggs. This is what the females look like. But again, they're variable on top of that.
The most extreme forms actually approach the native monarch
Oh, okay, or white. These things are real. This is the same butterfly this Francis is on. They have a lot different. I don't actually know where lantana is native. We have it all over the southeast. Anybody, the genus there is native on it. Anybody recognize that name?
Best guess is somewhere.
That's as far as I can go. Is it a peacock?
Sorry, peacock, yeah, that's pretty close.
Looks like it.
The buckeyes, yeah. Buckeyes are Jo Nunnallee's.
Yes.
And we now have officially buckeyes in Washington State, or in Buckeye at least. Do we have one or two? Two buckeyes in Washington.
Well, that's, because we haven't been out looking for them right now.
No, there's only two.
Hopefully a male
anyways,
and a female.
sorry,
Hopefully a male and a female.
there you go. This is another endemic of these islands, the New Caledonian firebird. Firebirds are honey eaters, and again, honey eaters are mostly from Australia. They're big birds. They look kind of like dinosaurs a little bit. They're this long. They're kind of a long neck, this long, sharp. These are they're not meat-eating birds, so they eat nectar. They're kind of neat birds.
Are they endangered?
No, the New Caledonian firebirds seem to be kind of all over.
Yeah, looks like it.
Now this is a dorsal view of that same butterfly. You can see how much it looks like a butterfly. Very similar.
Beautiful.
Lots of flowers. This is a lily, right?
Well, it's no longer a lily. That's,
Oh, thank you.
that's a eucharis. That's an Amazon lily.
It's an aroid?
No, it's a eucharis, the Amazon lily. It's an amaryllin. It's related to daffodils.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've been messing with my lilies again.
But that was a long time.
Well, I'm old.
Well, you can tell I'm a big expert on southwest Pacific flowers. There's another crow. This is a long-branded crow. Did we show a long-branded crow? Yeah, so this is another of the same thing. This is Jo standing on the beach. She said, "Come here and see this." I said, "See what?" She said, "See this."
So they actually leave the water then?
Those are the ones that are actually really tame, really nice animals.
Yeah. They're also extremely venomous, but they're not aggressive.
Do they hunt in the tide pools? So they looks like this was out of the water.
They actually come up on the land to lay their eggs, or to mate at least. And so I guess they do occur on the land fairly common in some seasons.
That's beautiful.
Nobody was trying to pick it up. And, it was pretty docile, just lying there on the beach. And people were gathered around it taking pictures. Something had bitten its tail, but you can see how its tail is flattened. It's like a big paddle for swimming. Somebody took a hole out of it here. That's what some of the flowering trees look like. One thing that you will notice down in the tropics is that most of the trees are flowering. In fact, when we went to Australia, we were impressed that nearly everything seemed to be flowering. Maybe not the Norfolk pines, but just about everything else. All the big eucalyptus and everything seemed to flower at one season or another. And of course, when they flower, many of them are these monster trees, 200 feet high, and the flowers way up there, so that's where the butterflies might be. There's our firebird again. Prehistoric looking birds.
So that looks a lot like a tree in Florida called poinciana.
I think it is a poinciana.
Yeah, that's Dolomis regia.
Yeah.
The flame poinciana.
Thank you, I was trying to come up with that word. There's just a lot of neat shoreline around there that you can just walk around anywhere you want. There's a ship out there. Well, now we finally have left the Isle of Pines. We're back on the ship, and they're hoisting up the tender, and we're about to finish our trip.
So, Dave, is that going up and down, the hoisting and lowering, is that pretty stable, or is it kind of a little bit of a ride, like a bumpy ride?
We're not on it when they do this.
Well, how do you get onto it then?
Well, down at the water line, they'll have a big door that opens, and then they have a ramp that they put down
Okay.
to the lifeboat, so
Okay,
people
that
get
seems
out
a
there.
lot more civilized.
That was fun.
When they hoist them, there might be one or two crew people on board, but there's no passengers.
Okay.
Again, you can see the pines here on Isle of Pines, and likewise a little closer. This I think is a little uninhabited island. It's lying just off there. So now we're back in the open ocean, heading down toward Australia. The masked booby, they're fairly common down there.
Wow.
And albatross, these were all, of course, seen from the ship. And so you get, there's not a lot there's not a lot of seagoing birds in the Pacific. Once you get away from the large land masses, once you get, say, a day away from North America, and you don't see much until you get maybe a day away from Hawaii. They are pelagics, they live at sea, but they tend to be a little bit closer to the land. You don't see a lot out in the middle. How many have seen Sydney Opera House? How many have seen it in pictures? That's quite a structure, it's really. That's our last slide. Now, how do you choose a cruise? Okay, cost is important for everybody. Our rule of thumb is $100 per person per day. That's a real good price. And you are seeing prices at that level on some of the cruises now. This particular cruise was a little bit less than $100 a day. So if you think, that was a 30-day cruise. So that's like $3,000 per person for a month-long cruise. You can stop at all these islands. Not too bad. It stings the pocketbook, but it's not like, if you go to some of these places on your own, like if you went to French Polynesia and you wanted to stay on the island, you find that they have all of these resort places where they're built out on stilts out in the water. You've seen a lot of pictures of those. Those go for over $1,000 a night. So you can see staying on a cruise ship at $100 a day and getting all of your meals thrown in, it's just a lot less expensive than staying on shore. Quality of the itinerary, study it carefully. When you see a cruise that's going to Timbuktu or wherever, sounds really exciting, let's grab it, good price. Look at that itinerary, see where you're going, see how many ports you're going to be stopping at. Are they going to be tendered ports? What quality of natural history, if you're interested in natural history, what quality of natural history is there in the area? Are you going to be looking at Roman ruins, or are you going to be looking at waterfalls, or is there some real natural history you can get into? How many sea days? Some of these cruises, some of the cheapest cruises are what they call relocation cruises. At the end of the season, they've been, say, running up and down in Alaska. At the end of the season, they relocate to maybe the South Pacific. And those relocation cruises have a lot of sea days, and so they're very inexpensive. But that's a lot of sea days. And you don't see much at sea days. You're on the ship. There's lots of things to do on the ship. There's entertainment, there's food, there's lots of crafts, there's food, there's they have entertainment each night and food.
Yeah, baby.
Again, how many ports do they visit? Or is it mostly sea days? How many ports are tendered, and how many are ports that are where they leave you out at some big old creosote port facility out well away from anywhere that's within walking distance? Here's the itinerary of the trip that we just took you on, and you can see we started in Seattle, sea day, Los Angeles, sea day, Hilo, Honolulu, Honolulu, sea day, sea day, sea day. And they put fillers in, like crossing the equator, that's just another sea day. Crossing the international date line, that's another sea day. Okay, finally get to Samoa one day, another sea day, Fiji, sea day. Vanuatu, leave locality. See, this is the good part. Here, you're at port every day there for about 6 days in a row. A lot of these are tendered ports. Sea day, sea day. So there's a lot of sea days in here, and that's part of the reason this is a pretty inexpensive tour. But that's what you look at when you're looking for a cruise. Look at the itinerary, check it out carefully. Not just how many sea days, but where they're stopping. So, enjoy your next cruise.
Dave, when you're on board ship, do they, like, just an example of yours, do they have anybody who talks to you about, the history of this, how the islands were settled by humans and
They do.
things like, so there is some educational aspect they give you?
On some cruises, yes. There's kind of, sometimes you get some real good speakers who talk a lot about the natural histories. Others will talk about the history of the peoples. Like the areas where we were here, of course, we went to Hawaii. That was Polynesian. Most of the other islands we visited were Melanesian. These were two different movements of people that populated these different regions. The Melanesians are dark-skinned people with curly hair mostly. The Polynesians they have straight hair and have less dark complexions. So they're different peoples. And then if you went further to the northwest, like up toward the Philippines, you get into the Micronesians. It's another group of people again. So the different populations of people in these different regions. Go to Australia, you have the Aborigines, which are none of the above. A lot of the archaeology, the prehistoric movements of these peoples, a lot of it is poorly known, but they figured out with pretty good precision what happened and when. So there's some pretty interesting stories. On some of the ships, you will also get a good natural history guide. On this, I believe it was this trip, we actually had a birding expert. He was from South Africa, and he would meet us every day on the poop deck, and we'd go out there and look at the sea. There weren't many birds. He was very good when we did see birds, but he would also give us some ideas where to go when we got to shore. And remember that a lot of people are interested in birds, so a lot of them will be able to give you a clue where there's some good bird watching. Good places for bird watching is also almost always good places for butterflies, and good places for plants and other things. Natural history tends to the richest natural history is same places where the birds are. So that's always a good clue. Any questions? Yes?
I noticed everybody had shorts on and things. Isn't were bugs ever a problem? Mosquitoes and things like that?
I don't remember too many insect problems. Maybe on Hawaii there were some mosquitoes. Mostly it's not a big problem. But it varies from place to place. If you go to Australia, the flies just drive you crazy. They don't bite, they just walk all over your face. But you always hear stories about the mosquitoes and tsetse flies or whatever. We've actually been in very few places where they've really been a nuisance, where there's biting insects that do you a lot of bother. But it happens in some places.
Our kid is in the Coast Guard. He was assigned to Samoa, and then his assignment was canceled because too many of the military on Samoa got dengue, and 2 of them died from it. So it made us kind of pay attention after that.
What was it they were avoiding?
Dengue fever.
Oh.
Mosquito borne.
Mosquitoes?
Yeah.
And that was,
That was like 7 or 8 years ago.
what was the island?
On Samoa, I think it was on American Samoa.
Okay. By the way, there's two Samoas. Anybody that know what the two are? American's one.
West.
French.
French?
West.
West.
West Samoa. And the one that we went to on this trip was West Samoa. We didn't go to American Samoa. Okay, well, thank you. Oh, did you-